Life's too short to drive boring cars. So we all work really, really hard for our money. And when we go out buy a new or slightly used vehicle, we want to make sure that it's going to be fun, reliable, and very cost effective. We don't want it to cause us a whole lot of problems. So there's three major areas that can cost a lot of cash: bad engines, bad transmissions, and electronics that go sideways. I'm going to help each and every one of you. And today I'm going to share a list of 5 major late model engines that are known to have significant failure rates, the vehicles you can find them in, and what the manufacturers plan to do about it. So let's get into it now. So the first engine is BMW's illustrious N63. I'm sure you all know the reputation precedes it. Now the N63 engine is essentially a 4.4 liter twin turbo V8 that's packaged under the hood of anything with the 50 series, 50 series designations. There was actually a class action lawsuit because of all the issues that customers were having with these vehicles. Now the latest generation of the N63 TU is a much improved version, but if you go back a handful of years, the N63 had a host of issues. For example, the Hot V has 2 turbos in it. Those 2 turbos roasted the heads. It dried up seals, you wound up with oil leaks, and you wound up with heavy oil consumption to the point where you had low oil light come on between oil services. And this was all caused by cooking of the heads, the valve guide seals, and it no longer contained the oil. Pull vacuum, it starts consuming oil, and it goes out the tailpipe. There were also timing chain issues, and another big issue was the batteries. The very expensive batteries that were housed in these vehicles, usually in the trunk of most BMWs, drained very, very quickly because of the increased use of the electric water pump and cooling system while it was trying to additionally cool down the vehicle due to the elevated temps found under the hood. Now, as a result, lawyers got involved. Allegedly, there was airtime, and essentially it wound up in a class action lawsuit to the point where BMW had to step up and make some drastic changes. Some of the actions that BMW were enforced to take were essentially identified in a bulletin where it offered customers 3 inspections. They would troubleshoot the cause of accelerated oil consumption, and if it became conclusive that it was an engine-related issue, BMW would step up and potentially change the engine. Of course, there was qualifiers with this. The vehicle had to be less than 10 years of age and under 120,000 miles. BMW then stepped up and formalized the process and called it CCP, short for Customer Care Package, just trying to save face and move this problem forward and move it out of the way. Now, sadly, with some of the mitigations, additional shielding, and troubleshooting, as well as some potential battery replacements on BMW's dime, the problem still didn't totally go away, and unfortunately, the N63 still garnered one of the worst reputations in BMW history for drivetrains. What kind of vehicles can you find it in? Well, anything, as I said before, with the 50 designation. For example, 750, like right there, 650i, X5 50i. They'd also be found in the X6, 550, and you get the gist. So at the end of the day, BMW's made some steps forward, but there's a very high probability that any car you're out there looking for now may have stepped outside that warranty period, and it may be just a ball of problem. So unfortunately, the N63 could truly be considered the Bavarian money waster. Try another engine, for example, one of these. So the next problematic engine is what's unfortunately tucked under the hood of this beautiful Audi parked behind me. And that is actually a molding process in the factory created an issue where there could be cracks in the bore of the cylinder. If that happens, there could be leaking oil, you could have combustion issues and running rough and tough idle, or it could potentially lead to a fire as a worst case scenario. Now, there's not a lot of these vehicles involved, but they are of significance and they're high dollar vehicles. So those who are buying these vehicles definitely want to know. And it's essentially any vehicle that's producing over 600 horsepower in the Volkswagen Audi group. For example, what we have here is the R SQ8. Beautiful twin turbo V8, 600 ponies, absolutely magnificent. And if you look really closely at this, with the wonderful headlights, of course it is Audi style, and those oversized wheels, what we have there are 23-inch tires, massive tires, oversized carbon ceramic brakes. Look at that slope. Does this all start to look very familiar? How about the vents on the back and those massively oversized tailpipes on both sides? And of course, Audi's trademark light signature. This actually involves not just the R SQ8 like we see here, also the RS6 Avant, and it also includes the Porsche Cayenne twin turbo and the Lamborghini Urus. If they fall within that certain time frame, they are potentially suspect and have been identified in NHTSA as one of the problem vehicles. Now the next major engine problem, unfortunately, is what's under the hood of these vehicles behind us. It's a very, very popular vehicle. It's the pickup truck by GM and Chevy. It's the 5.3 liter and the 6.2 liter V8s, L84 and the L87 engine specifically. Firstly, why do people find these vehicles attractive? And if they have engine problems, why do they continue to buy these? Well, look at them. First of all, they're very attractive. Of course, powerful grills. You've got great upsized rims. Of course, this one here has the 5.3 liter V8. The interiors feel like a Cadillac. You've got chrome all over the place. Chrome running boards, tonneau covers, sliding rear windows, step bumpers, and you can tow a whole pile of weight with these vehicles. But the specific problem has to do with the lifters. That's right, push rods, lifters. That's the hardware that actuates the valves themselves, which allow air and fuel mixture in and exhaust out. So without those working properly, you either A, don't have a running engine, or B, it'll just run rough depending on how many lifters are gone. But GM does have a way to manage these issues. If you have under 8,000 miles and there's warranty left, they essentially do the entire engine, all the lifters on both banks. If you have over 8,000 miles with warranty, they just do one bank of the V8. The other part of the equation, because it seems to be a frequency of failures, is if there's a previous failure, GM will also potentially offer up to 5 years and a 100,000 mile warranty post-lifter repair. So where are these engines found? Well, here's a few vehicles. GMC Sierra and his brother the Chevy Silverado. You can also find it in Tahoes, Yukons, and Cadillac Escalades. The next most problematic engine on my list is one that's been very controversial. It's been in the news, and it's all about Hyundai and Kia. It's essentially the 2 liter and 2.4 liter turbo and non-turbo vehicles, built essentially in 2011 to 2019. There's about 1.6 million vehicles identified within the recall by NHTSA, and unfortunately 300 vehicles have already burned that have been identified as a minimum. There could even be more. Now it's at a point where the customers are now scared to get behind the wheel, even if they have the recall identified. Now unfortunately the recall suggests that they're utilizing the knock sensing system, whether it's just a programming or installation of knock sensing equipment, and then just to alarm if there's a problem, because it's rod bearing related. Rod bearings start to slop, they make noise just before the point of failure, and the point is they're trying to capture that before it actually lets go, potentially causing a roadside failure and or even a fire. My personal opinion is that's bung, because at the end of the day, you're not addressing the root of the issue, and that's rod bearings and engine design. All you're doing is putting in a Band-Aid just to warn somebody if the engine's about to go boom and grenade. What kind of vehicles are noted within this recall? Well, here's one, for example. Sportage, the Optima, the Forte, as well as the Santa Fe, Tucsons, Elantras, and Sonatas. And unfortunately, part of the problem was allegedly because Kia and Hyundai took way too long to address the first rash of issues. So another great one for you, and it was wrapped up in 2018, but what it affects is 2012 to 2014 Range Rover Sport, similar to what we have behind us here, and the LR4 models. And when you drive a Range Rover like these, you expect perfection, you expect luxury, and you expect quality. For the most part, those are all there. Unfortunately, there are some problems. And it's the 5 liter supercharged V8 engine that's the questionable piece within this conversation. Now, obviously, looking at these are very, very attractive, sporty, quick, luxurious. What's not to like about a Range Rover Sport? Other than the fact that the air ride goes, front suspension problems, carbon fouling, electrics in the windows, electric e-brake hanging up and causing squealing noises. Besides those things, what could possibly be wrong here? Well, what it is the timing chain and the timing chain tensioners, levers, are all potentially at risk. Most manufacturers would suggest they're good for at least 150,000 miles, but unfortunately, many customers have experienced outright failures. And when something gives away on your timing system, the chain maybe breaks or your tensioner slacks up, what you can have is a piston running into a valve. When that happens, that's a shock wave. Broken pistons, valves, you could potentially fracture the crankshaft, camshaft. You can have a lot of different problems, and some of the fixes were as little as $5,000 all the way up to 20 grand for a full engine replacement, if that's what it took. What some of the settlement includes is a new warranty, 4-year, 50,000 mile minimum to cover and give you protection for that. And then they actually prorate it. So every year after that, they give you 70%, 60%, 50%, 40%. So they actually start prorating it year on year on year. So there's always some level of protection that's slightly reduced in value. But at the end of the day, they were forced to ante up because the owner's manual didn't advise people. And sadly, 150,000 miles for timing chain? No, people were lucky to see if they got half of that. And with all of that said, be sure to click on that video link. It's going to share with you a list of the top 10 most reliable luxury cars. Hope to see you real soon. Catch you then. Bye-bye.